Let's be honest, it wasn't a good Monaco Grand Prix. In fact, I don't think I've wanted a Grand Prix to go faster than I did yesterday. But there were a few reasons it was even more bland than normal. And we'll talk about those after we celebrate Charles Leclerc. Leclerc won the race from pole position and finally broke the curse at his home circuit. He's had rotten luck here in the past with multiple DNFs. He also had a gut-wrenching did not start when he was on pole position, not being able to take the start of the race due to a drive shaft issue. I think that was in 2021. He controlled the race, the pace of the race from start to finish, and despite the procession that was the Monaco Grand Prix, it was really nice to see Charles win his home race. It's the first time a native Monegasque has won the Monaco Grand Prix since 1931, and his first race win since the 2022 Austrian Grand Prix. It's nearly 40 races ago. We should probably talk about the lap 1 incident as well, shouldn't we? Sergio Perez started the Grand Prix in 16th, despite qualifying 18th. That's because both Hadz cars were found to have a rear wing that wasn't in compliance with the regulations, and therefore they were disqualified from qualifying, so they actually started behind him. But this would work against Perez, because it would be the Hadz of Kevin Magnussen, yes, that Kevin Magnussen, that would be his downfall. Going up the hill towards Beau Rivage, Kevin Magnussen had a decent run on Perez and stuck his front axle on the outside of the Red Bull car. The track actually tightens though as it goes up the hill, and Perez stayed exactly where he was, essentially in the middle of the track, but Magnussen, well, he didn't get out of it. He bounced against the wall, hit Perez, span him around, and then they both collected his teammate Nico Hülkenberg, who was just an innocent bystander. It was a huge accident that caused a lot of damage on all three of those cars, especially that Red Bull, and an insane amount of debris as well. It took a long time to clear up, a good 45 minutes, 50 minutes before the race restarted. I watched this back a lot during the red flag that came from the incident, and I still come to the same conclusion. Yes, Perez is neither on the left or the right side of the track, but Kevin Magnussen had a chance to back out of the incident, knowing the gap was closing, but he chose not to. I think if he backs out, Hülkenberg likely gets ahead of him because Hülkenberg was on the left side, and if Magnussen gets out of the throttle, he's probably worried that Hülkenberg's just going to breeze past him, and he probably didn't want that to happen. Personally, I believe this was caused by Magnussen, but the stewards decided no further action was required, which is extremely lucky for Kevin Magnussen because he's on the brink of a race ban for his conduct. It was this red flag, though, that was thrown because of this incident that actually ruined the race. Let me explain a little bit. During that red flag, as you might know, drivers are allowed to switch tyres. The front four started on mediums, so Charles Leclerc, his teammate Sainz, Oscar Piastri, and Lando Norris. They were then all able to switch to the hard tyres. The two Mercedes behind, alongside Max Verstappen, they risked the start a little bit on the hard tyres. They then had to switch. Well, they didn't have to switch, but they chose to switch to the mediums. This red flag meant that the tyre change rule was satisfied by all of the drivers, meaning they no longer had to stop if they didn't want to. And, well, most of them didn't. So the front four didn't pit, nor did George Russell on the mediums behind them. Verstappen and Hamilton did eventually pit, but then not because they needed to, they just tried to do something different on fresher tyres because they had a window behind them. First things first, we need a change to the red flag rules. Maybe they need to remove that tyre change rule during a red flag, or make it so drivers can change tyres, but it won't satisfy the compound rule. They'll still have to pit during the race. It's kind of, it nullifies races, not just this weekend, but it nullifies the excitement to an extent when there's a red flag and it means that drivers no longer have to pit, or a driver really looks out being able to change tyres at the right time. I think that rule needs a change. Monaco is an overtaking track, we know that, but one of the only sources of entertainment and jeopardy when it comes to the actual finishing position is the pit stops. We got none of those in areas of the track that actually mattered because of that early red flag. In fact, some of the cars in the front were going comically slow. They were going slower than they had to, and they were already going slow at that point, so that cars behind them couldn't get a window on them. I'm talking comically slow. And that's not racing, is it? That's not what the fans came to see. But it kind of unearthed another issue. Why on earth are the hard tyres going the entire length of a race? Not only that, George Russell, behind the hard runners, went the entire distance on the mediums. Sure, after the red flag, it started on lap 3, but they've done well in excess of 70 laps on the mediums as well. Now, I appreciate that his pace was really, really slow to accommodate that, but at no point should that be possible. We even have the softest tyres in the range at Monaco this weekend as well. The C3, the C4 and the C5. That is the softest available to Pirelli. Monaco just isn't fit for purpose, but that is a bit of a different story. I have made a video on this before, so I'll link that below. It's not really the track's fault though, it's the cars. They've got so long, so wide, so heavy. They're just not suited for such a small track like Monaco anymore. We have to have a change. We had 4 overtakes. I hope I've counted these right. 4 overtakes all race. Wow. 2 of those were from Lance Stroll after he pitted for softs late on in the race. If I've miscounted, I apologize, but they were all at the back of the field with large tyre deltas, and none of them were for position. Max Verstappen was 3 seconds a lap quicker than George Russell when he came out of the pits. He was absolutely lightning quick. So was Lewis Hamilton behind him. But when he got onto the gearbox of Russell, he just couldn't get past. There was no way. I've seen people saying, oh, Monaco, though, it's a special race. It's about the experience of Monaco, and you've got to be there. And I appreciate that it might be a great experience if you're there, but most fans can't afford that. Most fans are watching the racing at home. And let's be real, for the average fan watching the racing at home, it's a terrible race. And this is one of the worst that's been at Monaco for a long time. I personally don't care about some billionaire on their yacht. I don't care if they're having a great time schmoozing with their friends in Monaco. The racing is terrible. Something needs to happen with Monaco as well, because I can't even believe I'm saying it. For the first time in Formula One history, the top 10 finished in exactly the same positions they started the race. Not one single overtake in the top 10 all race. You could say, well, yeah, but there were no pit stops and that might have changed things. But that just strengthens the point. It's not possible to overtake at Monaco without something happening in the pits. If you've got 2 cars at a similar pace, it's mostly just impossible. You need a huge tyre delta, and even then, if the driver in front is able to use their battery in the right locations and has just enough traction in certain areas, you can't get past. Ultimately, it wasn't a good race. There was mitigating circumstances that made it as bad as it was, but Monaco, we have to start having conversations about Monaco, and F1 needs to consider either making huge changes to the circuit, or it needs to take a step back and leave the calendar. It's not good for racing. There we have it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Canada next, a street circuit that you can actually overtake on, so I'm looking forward to that. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.